Welcome to Midnight Grove, where imagination takes flight and every tale holds a spark of magic. Tonight's story, The Thread of Time, whisks us into the life of Lily and her brother Sam as they uncover a mysterious hourglass hidden in their family's attic. This magical bedtime tale weaves adventure, family secrets, and the courage to protect what truly matters. Get ready to embark on a journey across the threads of time and let the magic carry you into peaceful dreams. Chapter 1: The Forgotten Attic. The attic was colder than Lily had expected, its shadows long and unfamiliar. She stood at the bottom of the creaking staircase, hesitating as the wooden slats loomed above her. The house was silent, except for the occasional groan of its old beams, as if the house itself were breathing. Her younger brother Sam peeked around the corner from the hallway below. "You're not actually going up there, are you?" Lily shot him a determined look. "Of course I am. You know Grandma said it's dangerous," Sam warned, his voice dropping to a whisper as though their grandmother might appear at any moment to scold them. "She said it was mysterious, not dangerous," Lily corrected, gripping the lantern in her hand. The soft golden light flickered as she stepped onto the first creaking step. Sam folded his arms, his face skeptical. "What are you even looking for?" Lily hesitated. That was the thing. She didn't know. Ever since they had returned to the old house that afternoon, she'd felt a strange pull toward the attic. Maybe it was the stories her grandmother used to tell about treasures of time hidden in the forgotten corners of their family home. Or maybe it was the feeling she'd had earlier, standing in the backyard when the wind seemed to whisper her name. "I don't know," she admitted, glancing back at Sam, "but I'll never find out if I don't look." Sam groaned. "Fine, but if you get eaten by attic ghosts, I'm not helping." Lily rolled her eyes and began the climb. The stairs groaned beneath her weight, and the air grew colder the higher she went. By the time she reached the attic door, she could see her breath fogging in the lantern's light. The door was old, its paint chipped and faded. A brass handle gleamed faintly in the lantern's glow, and when Lily turned it, the door creaked open with a reluctant groan. The attic was vast, much larger than she remembered. Lily had only been up here once years ago when her grandmother was still alive. Back then, the attic had felt cozy, filled with sunlight streaming through the small circular window at the far end. Now, it felt like a different world entirely. The air smelled of dust and time, a mix of wood and forgotten memories. Cobwebs hung from the rafters, swaying gently as the wind snuck through cracks in the walls. Old trunks, piles of books, and covered furniture were scattered haphazardly, forming small islands in a sea of shadows. Lily stepped inside, her footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust on the wooden floor. Her lantern cast long flickering shadows as she moved deeper into the attic. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, but she felt certain she'd know it when she saw it. After a few minutes of searching, her eyes landed on a small wooden chest tucked into the corner of the room. Unlike the other items in the attic, this chest seemed untouched by time. Its wood gleamed faintly, as though it had been polished recently, and its brass latch shone as if it had been spared from the dust that covered everything else. Lily knelt down, setting her lantern beside her. She ran her fingers over the smooth surface of the chest, noticing the intricate carvings etched into the wood. Swirls, stars, and strange symbols formed a pattern that seemed almost alive in the flickering light. She hesitated for a moment before opening the latch. The chest creaked as it opened, revealing its contents, a single hourglass nestled in a bed of deep green velvet. Lily frowned, picking up the hourglass carefully. It was heavier than it looked, its frame made of dark, polished wood, and the sand inside shimmered with an otherworldly golden glow. "What's that?" Lily jumped, nearly dropping the hourglass. Sam was standing in the doorway, his eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and fear. "It's just an old hourglass," Lily said, though even as she said the words, she felt they weren't entirely true. Sam stepped closer, his gaze fixed on the glowing sand. "It looks weird." Lily couldn't argue with that. The sand didn't fall like normal sand. Instead, it seemed to flow upward, defying gravity in a mesmerizing spiral. "I think it's—" Before she could finish, the hourglass glowed brightly, filling the attic with golden light. The air seemed to hum with energy, and the dust that had hung so heavily in the attic began to swirl around them, caught in an invisible wind. "Lily!" Sam shouted, grabbing her arm. "What's happening?" "I don't know," she shouted back, clutching the hourglass tightly. The wind grew stronger, and the golden light intensified until it was all they could see. Just as suddenly as it had started, everything went still. The attic was silent once more, but it wasn't the same. The air felt charged, and the once dusty space now looked different. The trunks and furniture were arranged neatly, and the cobwebs were gone. "What just happened?" Sam whispered. Lily turned the hourglass over in her hands, watching as the sand began to flow downward again. "I think," she said slowly, "this hourglass might be magical." Chapter 2. The Hourglass's Secret. The attic felt different now. The golden glow from the hourglass had faded, leaving the space steeped in an almost expectant silence. Lily stared down at the strange object in her hands, her fingers tracing the intricate carvings on its frame. "What do you mean, magical?" Sam asked, his voice tight. He stood rigidly in the middle of the room, looking around as though something might jump out at them. "I don't know," Lily admitted, turning the hourglass over and watching the sand begin to flow upward again. The shimmering grains twisted in their impossible motion, a slow spiral that was oddly hypnotic. "But didn't you feel that? The wind, the light, it wasn't normal." "Yeah, I felt it. And I also feel like we should put that thing back and pretend we never saw it," Sam said, crossing his arms. Lily didn't respond. She couldn't tear her eyes away from the hourglass. It felt warm in her hands, not uncomfortably so, but as if it had a life of its own. The symbols carved into the frame seemed to glow faintly, pulsing with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. "We can't just ignore this," she said finally. "It's important, I can feel it." "Important. It's creepy, Sam said, backing toward the attic door. Grandma said this house had secrets, but she didn't say anything about haunted hourglasses. Maybe this is what she meant, Lily said softly, her mind racing. Their grandmother had always been a mystery. She'd lived in this house her entire life, and though she was kind, she had a habit of speaking in riddles that no one could quite decipher. Lily remembered the way she'd smile whenever she mentioned the attic, her eyes twinkling with a secret she never shared. "It's where time keeps its treasures," she had said once, running her fingers over the wooden banister of the staircase. "What if this is the treasure?" Lily whispered to herself. Sam threw up his hands. "Fine, let's say it is. What are you going to do with it?" Lily didn't have an answer, but as she turned the hourglass in her hands, she felt a pull, a sense that it wasn't meant to stay hidden any longer. The first test. That night, Lily couldn't sleep. The hourglass sat on her nightstand, its faint glow casting soft shadows across the room. She had tried to leave it in the attic, but the thought of parting with it had filled her with unease. The sand continued its strange upward flow, and Lily couldn't shake the feeling that it was waiting for her to do something. Finally, unable to resist, she reached for it. "Okay," she whispered, holding it close. "Let's see what you can do." She turned the hourglass upside down. At first, nothing happened. The sand continued its mesmerizing spiral, and the room remained quiet. But then the air shifted. It wasn't like the dramatic windstorm in the attic. It was subtler, a tingling sensation that prickled along her skin. The room grew brighter, though the lamp on her nightstand was off. Lily looked around, confused, and then gasped. The scene outside her window had changed. Instead of the dark, moonlit backyard, she saw the house's garden as it had been years ago, vibrant with colorful flowers and overgrown vines. The old swing set that had been torn down long before she was born stood proudly in the corner, swaying gently in the breeze. Lily scrambled out of bed and pressed her face to the glass. The view was so clear, so vivid, that she could almost hear the creak of the swing chains and the rustle of leaves. "It's showing the past," she whispered, her heart pounding. She turned back to the hourglass, her hands trembling. The carvings on its frame seemed brighter now, their light pulsing in time with the flow of the sand. "What else can you do?" Lily wondered aloud. Sam's reluctant return. The next morning, Lily told Sam everything. He stared at her, his cereal spoon frozen halfway to his mouth. "You're telling me it showed you the past?" "Yes," Lily said, her voice urgent. "I saw the old garden, Sam, the swing set, the flower beds, everything Grandma used to describe." Sam frowned. "You sure you didn't just dream it?" "It wasn't a dream," Lily insisted. "The hourglass is magic. It's connected to this house somehow. I think it might be connected to Grandma, too." Sam pushed his bowl aside, leaning forward. "Okay, let's say you're right. Why would Grandma leave something like that up there? If it's so important, why didn't she tell us about it?" Lily hesitated. She didn't have an answer. "Maybe she wanted us to find it when we were ready," she said finally. Sam rolled his eyes. "Or maybe she didn't tell us because it's dangerous." "It's not dangerous," Lily said, though even as she said the words, she couldn't be sure. The hourglass hadn't harmed her, but it had changed something in her, as if touching it had opened a door she couldn't close. Sam sighed. "All right, prove it. Show me what it does." A glimpse into the past. That evening, they sat cross-legged on the floor of Lily's room, the hourglass between them. The sun had set, and the only light came from a small lamp on Lily's desk. "Are you ready?" Lily asked, her hands hovering over the hourglass. Sam nodded, though he looked less than enthusiastic. Lily turned the hourglass upside down. The air shifted immediately, growing warmer and heavier. The carvings on the hourglass glowed brightly, casting strange patterns on the walls. Sam let out a startled yelp as the golden light enveloped the room. "What's happening?" he shouted over the hum that filled the air. "Just wait," Lily shouted back. The light intensified, and then, just as suddenly, it vanished. The room was silent, but when Lily and Sam looked around, they realized they were no longer in her bedroom. They were standing in the middle of the house's old garden, though it wasn't the overgrown and neglected space they knew. The flowers were blooming, their petals vivid and fragrant. The swing set creaked softly in the breeze, and the grass was freshly cut. "Where are we?" Sam whispered. "We're in the past," Lily said, her voice trembling. Sam turned to her, his eyes wide. "Lily, this isn't just a vision. We're really here." Before Lily could respond, they heard a voice, a familiar, lilting voice that made her heart stop. "Come on, children. It's almost time for supper." They turned toward the sound and saw her. Their grandmother, young and smiling, standing at the edge of the garden. Chapter 3, Secrets of the Garden. Lily's heart felt as if it had stopped. She stared at the young woman in the garden, the same warm eyes, the same lilting voice that had told them bedtime stories for years. It was their grandmother, though she looked younger than Lily had ever seen her. Her long dark hair was tied back with a ribbon, and she wore a bright yellow sundress that swayed in the breeze. "Grandma," Lily whispered. Sam grabbed her arm. "What is going on? How is she?" "I don't know," Lily said quickly. She clutched the hourglass tightly, her fingers trembling as the golden light in its carvings pulsed faintly, as if alive. Their grandmother, oblivious to their presence, turned back toward the house. "Hurry up now," she called again. Lily and Sam exchanged a glance, the same unspoken question in both their eyes. Was this real? Sam broke the silence first. "Should we follow her?" Lily hesitated, the weight of the hourglass suddenly feeling heavier in her hands. Every instinct told her this wasn't something they were supposed to see, yet the garden around them felt so vivid, so alive, that it was impossible to believe it wasn't real. "I think we have to," she said finally. The family they never knew. The siblings stepped cautiously through the garden, their shoes crunching softly on the gravel path. The smells of lavender and freshly turned soil filled the air, and bees buzzed lazily around the flower beds. The house came into view as they approached, but it wasn't the same house they knew. The faded paint, cracked shutters, and creeping ivy that had marked it for as long as they could remember were gone. In their place stood a bright, lively home, its white clapboard walls gleaming in the sun and flower boxes bursting with blooms under every window. Sam nudged Lily. "This is nuts," he whispered. It's like we stepped into one of Grandma's stories. It's more than a story, Lily replied, her voice hushed. This is real. The young version of their grandmother disappeared through the open front door, her yellow dress trailing behind her. Lily hesitated for a moment, clutching the hourglass tightly before following. Sam was close behind, his eyes darting around nervously. Inside, the house was filled with warm golden light. The polished wood floors gleamed, and the scent of freshly baked bread wafted through the air. Everything was pristine, from the colorful rug in the hallway to the framed photographs hanging on the walls. Lily stopped abruptly when she saw one of the pictures. It showed a man and a woman standing side by side in the garden, their arms around a young girl who could only be their grandmother. "Who are they?" Sam asked, leaning in for a closer look. "They must be her parents," Lily said softly. She stared at the man in the photograph, noticing the resemblance between him and Sam, the same sharp jawline and dark eyes. "Do you think Grandma ever told us about them?" Sam asked. Lily shook her head. "Not that I remember. She always said the house had secrets, but she never mentioned this." Before they could linger any longer, a voice called from the next room. "Esther, are you ready?" Lily froze. The name rang in her ears like a bell. Esther. That was their grandmother's name, though she'd never heard anyone call her by it. The siblings exchanged a glance, their curiosity outweighing their fear as they moved toward the source of the voice. The encounter. The kitchen was a whirlwind of activity. Their grandmother, Esther, stood by the counter helping an older woman knead dough. A younger boy sat at the table, carving something into a block of wood with a focused expression. The room hummed with life, the air filled with laughter and the clatter of dishes. "Make sure you wash up before supper," the older woman said, smiling at Esther. Her apron was dusted with flour, and her voice had the same soothing tone as their grandmother's, though her features were sharper, sterner. "I will, Mama," Esther said, rolling her eyes playfully. She turned to the boy at the table. "Thomas, what are you making now?" The boy held up the block of wood, revealing the rough outline of what looked like a clock. "It's going to be a masterpiece," he said with a grin. Esther laughed. "Everything you make is a masterpiece." Lily and Sam watched in stunned silence from the doorway, their presence unnoticed by the family. The scene was so ordinary, yet so extraordinary at the same time. It was their family's history unfolding before their eyes, a glimpse into a world they'd never known existed. "Do you think they can see us?" Sam whispered. "I don't think so," Lily said. The hourglass pulsed faintly in her hand, a reminder of the strange magic that had brought them here. But as she said the words, Esther glanced toward the doorway. For a brief moment her eyes seemed to lock onto Lily's. Lily's breath caught. Could she see them? "Esther, could you get the silverware from the pantry?" her mother asked, breaking the moment. Esther nodded, turning away from the doorway. "The hourglass speaks." "Okay, this is getting too weird," Sam said, pulling at Lily's sleeve. "We need to get out of here." "I just need a little more time," Lily said, her voice filled with urgency. "There's something we're supposed to learn here." "Oh, something we're not supposed to see," Sam muttered, but he didn't argue further. Lily stepped back into the hallway, the hourglass glowing softly in her hands. She turned it over again, hoping to trigger whatever magic had brought them here. The air shifted instantly. The warmth of the house disappeared, replaced by a cool stillness. The golden light of the hourglass grew brighter, and the walls of the house seemed to ripple like water. "Lily!" Sam shouted, grabbing her arm as the world around them blurred and swirled. When the light faded, they were back in the attic. The hidden warning. Lily stumbled, clutching the hourglass as the room stopped spinning. She and Sam stood in the exact spot they had been before the journey began, the attic once again cloaked in dust and shadows. "Okay," Sam said, sitting down on an old trunk. "What just happened? And please don't say it's normal." "It's not normal," Lily admitted, staring at the hourglass. The symbols etched into its frame glowed faintly as if alive. "But it's magic, Sam. We just saw the past. Grandma's past." Sam groaned. "And what exactly are we supposed to do with that? Write a report? Tell Mom and Dad we went time traveling?" Lily ignored him, her thoughts racing. The vision had felt so real, but it had also raised more questions than it answered. Who were Esther's parents? Why had they never been mentioned before? And why had the hourglass shown them that particular moment? As if in response to her thoughts, the hourglass glowed brighter. Lily's heart skipped a beat as the carving shifted before her eyes, forming a new pattern she hadn't seen before. "What's it doing now?" Sam asked warily. Lily held the hourglass closer, studying the symbols. Among the swirling lines and stars, a single word began to emerge, glowing faintly in the dim light of the attic. "Protect," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. Sam leaned forward. "Protect what?" "I don't know," Lily said, her fingers tightening around the hourglass. But deep down she felt a sense of urgency, as though the hourglass was warning her of something she didn't yet understand. "We have to figure this out," she said firmly. Sam groaned again. "Of course we do, because life isn't complicated enough already." But despite his protests, Lily could see the curiosity in his eyes. The hourglass had already drawn them into its mystery, and there was no turning back now. Chapter 4: Threads of Times. The attic was colder than before, as if the hourglass's magic had drained the warmth from the air. Lily and Sam sat on the floor, the faint glow of the hourglass casting eerie patterns on the walls. "Protect," Sam repeated, his voice skeptical. "What does that even mean?" "I don't know yet," Lily admitted, running her fingers over the carvings on the hourglass. The word had vanished, but she could still feel its urgency, a sense that the hourglass was more than just a tool for glimpsing the past. Sam rubbed his arms, glancing uneasily around the attic. "Well, whatever it's trying to tell us, I don't like it. Maybe we should just put it back and forget about all this." Lily shook her head. "We can't just leave it. What if Grandma wanted us to find it? What if it's the key to something important?" "Or something dangerous," Sam muttered. Ignoring him, Lily stood up and moved toward the window at the far end of the attic. She stared out at the backyard, now bathed in the pale light of early morning. The garden below looked nothing like the vibrant place they had just seen. The swing set was gone, the flower beds overgrown, and the fence half collapsed. "It's connected to her," Lily said softly, more to herself than to Sam. "I can feel it." Sam sighed. "Okay, fine, let's say you're right. What do we do now?" Lily turned back to him, determination flashing in her eyes. "We figure out what the hourglass wants us to protect and why." Clues from the past. The next few days were a blur of research and quiet tension. Lily spent hours poring over old family photo albums, searching for any mention of the garden or the people they had seen in the past. She found plenty of pictures of their grandmother, but there was nothing about her parents or her brother, Thomas. "Maybe she didn't want to talk about them," Sam said one afternoon, flipping through a stack of faded photographs. "Maybe something bad happened." Lily frowned, staring at a photo of their grandmother as a young woman. She was standing in front of the house, smiling, but her eyes seemed sad, as though she were hiding something. "If something bad happened, it's even more important for us to find out what it was," Lily said. "Grandma wouldn't have kept this hourglass if it wasn't important." Sam groaned. "You're way too curious for your own good, you know that?" Lily ignored him, turning her attention back to the hourglass. It sat on the table between them, its carvings glowing faintly in the dim light. She had tried turning it again several times, but nothing had happened. "Maybe it needs something," she murmured, running her fingers over the symbols. "Like a key." "Great," Sam said, leaning back in his chair. "So now we have to find a magic key for a magic hourglass. This just keeps getting better." The whispering wind. That night Lily dreamed of the garden. She was standing in the center of the flower beds, the vibrant colors almost too bright to look at. The air was warm and fragrant, and the sound of children laughing echoed around her. "Lily!" The voice was soft and distant, like the wind rustling through leaves. "Lily, protect the thread." She turned, searching for the source of the voice. The garden stretched endlessly in every direction, and the laughter grew louder, mingling with the sound of wind chimes and bird song. "Lily!" The voice came again, more urgent this time. And then she saw her grandmother, standing at the edge of the garden. She was older now, her grey hair tied back and her face lined with age, but her eyes were as sharp and knowing as ever. "Grandma," Lily called, taking a step toward her. But before she could reach her, the scene dissolved into golden light and Lily woke with a start. The hidden door. The next morning, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that her dream had been more than just a dream. She grabbed the hourglass and headed back to the attic, determined to find answers. Sam followed reluctantly, muttering about how he was missing breakfast for another wild goose chase. "Just trust me," Lily said, climbing the stairs two at a time. When they reached the attic, Lily walked straight to the far wall. The dream had shown her something she hadn't noticed before. A faint outline in the wood, almost like a door frame. "What are you doing?" Sam asked as she ran her fingers along the wall. "There's something here," Lily said. She pushed against the wood, but it didn't budge. Sam sighed. "You're imagining things." "No, I'm not," Lily said, turning the hourglass over in her hands. Its carvings began to glow and the air around them grew warmer. Before Sam could argue further, a faint click echoed through the attic. The wall shifted, revealing a narrow door that hadn't been there before. "Okay," Sam said, his voice rising. "Now I'm officially freaked out." Lily didn't respond. She reached for the door, her heart pounding as she pulled it open. The room beyond time. Behind the door was a small room, its walls lined with shelves filled with books, trinkets, and strange objects that seemed to hum with energy. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it lay a piece of parchment, its edges yellowed with age. Lily stepped inside, the hourglass glowing brightly in her hands. She picked up the parchment, her fingers trembling as she unfolded it. The words written on the page were in a language she didn't recognize, but beneath them was a single sentence in English. "The thread of time must remain unbroken." Sam peered over her shoulder. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. But as she stared at the parchment, the hourglass began to glow brighter, its sand swirling faster. The carving shifted again, forming the word they had seen before: protect. Lily looked up at Sam, her eyes wide. "I think we're part of this now. Whatever this is, it's up to us to protect it." Sam groaned. "Why does that sound like a bad thing?" Before Lily could respond, the hourglass pulsed, and the golden light enveloped them once more. Chapter 5: The Thread of Time. The golden light surrounded Lily and Sam, warm and all-encompassing, as the attic dissolved around them. For a moment, Lily felt weightless, like she was floating in an endless expanse. The hourglass pulsed in her hands, its light growing brighter and brighter until everything went still. When the light faded, they were no longer in the attic. Lily blinked, her heart racing as she took in their surroundings. They were standing in the middle of a vast field, the sky above them painted with hues of gold and deep purple. Strange, shimmering plants swayed gently in an unseen breeze, their leaves sparkling like starlight. "What is this place?" Sam asked, his voice trembling. Lily shook her head. "I don't know." The hourglass was still glowing, its carvings shifting once more. Lily watched in awe as the symbols rearranged themselves, forming a new word: balance. "Balance," Sam said, peering over her shoulder. "What does that mean?" "I think we're about to find out," Lily replied, nodding toward a figure in the distance. The Keeper of Time. A figure was approaching them, gliding across the field as if carried by the wind. It was cloaked in flowing robes that shimmered like the sky above, and its face was obscured by a veil of light. Lily and Sam instinctively stepped closer to each other as the figure stopped a few feet away. It raised a hand, its voice echoing as though it came from everywhere at once. "You have found the hourglass of threads," it said, "and now you stand at the crossroads of time." "The what?" Sam blurted out, his voice high-pitched with panic. "The crossroads of time," the figure repeated, "where the threads of the past, present, and future converge. Few are chosen to bear this responsibility." Lily swallowed hard, clutching the hourglass tightly. "Why us?" "Because your bloodline is bound to the hourglass," the figure said. "Your grandmother Esther..." protected it during her time, and now it has chosen you." Sam's eyes widened. "Wait, Grandma knew about this? She never said anything." "She would not have spoken of it lightly," the figure replied. "For the hourglass carries great power and great danger. Its threads connect all moments of time. If they are broken, chaos will follow." Lily felt a chill run down her spine. Is that what the message meant? The thread of time must remain unbroken? "Yes," the figure said gravely, "and now a shadow seeks to sever the thread. You must stop it before it is too late." The shadow's threat. As the figure spoke, the air around them grew colder. The golden sky darkened and a low rumbling sound echoed across the field. Lily turned, her heart pounding, as she saw a mass of writhing darkness creeping across the field. It moved like smoke, but its edges crackled with jagged sparks of red and black. The plants it touched withered instantly, their glowing leaves turning to ash. "That doesn't look good," Sam muttered, gripping Lily's arm. "No, it doesn't," Lily agreed, her voice barely above a whisper. The figure raised its hands, and the hourglass in Lily's hands pulsed in response. The golden sand began to swirl faster, a glowing spiral of light that seemed to hum with energy. "The shadow is a force born of imbalance," the figure said. "It seeks to unravel the thread of time, to disrupt the balance between past, present, and future." Lily stared at the hourglass, her thoughts racing. "What are we supposed to do? How can we stop it?" "You must protect the thread," the figure said. "The hourglass will guide you." The shadow surged closer, its crackling tendrils reaching for them. Lily felt the hourglass grow warmer in her hands, its light intensifying. "Lily, we need to go!" Sam shouted, his voice panicked. But Lily didn't move. She could feel the hourglass pulling at her, urging her to act. Without fully understanding why, she turned it upside down. Inside the thread, the golden light flared again, enveloping them completely. Lily felt the ground disappear beneath her feet, and for a moment she was falling through an endless void. Then, with a sudden jolt, she landed on solid ground. She gasped, clutching the hourglass tightly as she looked around. They were no longer in the shimmering field. Instead, they stood on a narrow bridge of light, stretching infinitely in both directions. Around them, glowing threads crisscrossed the darkness, their colors shifting and intertwining like rivers of light. "Where are we now?" Sam asked, his voice echoing in the emptiness. "We're inside the thread," Lily said, though she wasn't sure how she knew. The hourglass's glow pulsed in time with the threads, as if it were alive. Before she could say more, the shadow appeared. It loomed at the far end of the bridge, its tendrils snapping and crackling as it moved toward them. "It followed us," Sam shouted. "It's trying to destroy the thread," Lily said, her voice shaking. She glanced at the hourglass, its light growing brighter. "We have to stop it." "How?" Sam demanded. The hourglass pulsed again, its carvings shifting once more. This time a single word appeared: restore. The battle for time. The shadow surged forward, its tendrils lashing out at the glowing threads around them. Wherever it touched, the light dimmed, and the threads began to unravel. Lily felt the hourglass grow heavier in her hands, its warmth spreading through her body. She didn't know what to do, but instinct took over. "Hold on to me!" she shouted, grabbing Sam's arm. He didn't argue. Together they stepped forward, the hourglass glowing so brightly that it illuminated the entire bridge. The shadow hissed, recoiling slightly as the golden light grew stronger. "Keep going!" Sam urged, his voice tight with fear. Lily focused on the hourglass, willing it to act. The sand inside swirled faster and faster, and she felt a surge of energy flow through her. The light around them intensified, pushing back the shadow inch by inch. But the shadow fought back, its tendrils lashing out violently. One struck the bridge and a section of the glowing thread unraveled, sending sparks flying into the darkness. "Lily!" Sam shouted. "I see it," she yelled, her grip tightening on the hourglass. The carvings shifted again, forming a new word: bind. Lily didn't hesitate. She held the hourglass high, its light streaming out like a beacon. The swirling sand erupted from the glass, transforming into golden threads that wrapped around the shadow's tendrils. The shadow writhed, its movements frantic as the golden threads tightened around it. "It's working," Sam shouted, his voice filled with hope. But the shadow wasn't finished. With a final, desperate surge, it lashed out at Lily. She stumbled backward, the force of the attack knocking the hourglass from her hands. "Lily!" Sam screamed as the hourglass tumbled toward the edge of the bridge. The choice. Time seemed to slow as Lily dove for the hourglass. Her fingers closed around its frame just as it teetered on the edge. She pulled it back, her heart pounding as she scrambled to her feet. The shadow loomed above them, its crackling tendrils coiling like a predator preparing to strike. Lily looked at the hourglass, its light flickering. She knew what she had to do. "I have to turn it again," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. Sam grabbed her arm. "What if it makes things worse?" "It's the only way," Lily said. She looked at him, her eyes filled with determination. "We have to trust it." Sam hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, do it." Lily took a deep breath and turned the hourglass over. The golden light flared once more, and the threads around them surged with new energy. The unraveling sections repaired themselves, their colors brighter and more vibrant than before. The shadow let out a deafening roar as the golden threads encased it completely, binding it in a web of light. Slowly it began to shrink, its crackling tendrils dissolving into sparks. Within moments the shadow was gone. The legacy of the hourglass. The bridge of light began to fade, and Lily felt herself being pulled away. She clutched the hourglass tightly as the golden light surrounded them once more. When the light faded, they were back in the attic. The hourglass was still in Lily's hands, its glow dim but steady. The carvings had returned to their original state, and the sand inside flowed gently as if at peace. Sam let out a shaky laugh. "We're back, we're actually back." Lily nodded, her gaze fixed on the hourglass. "The thread is safe," she said softly. "What now?" Sam asked. Lily thought for a moment, then smiled. "We keep it safe, just like Grandma did." As the first rays of sunlight streamed through the attic window, Lily placed the hourglass back in its wooden chest. She and Sam closed the lid together, the carvings on the hourglass glowing faintly one last time. The house seemed quieter now, as if it too was at peace. Lily and Sam left the attic, their bond stronger than ever. They didn't know what the future held, but they knew one thing for certain. They would protect the thread of time, just as their family always had. Thank you for joining us at Midnight Grove for the thread of time. Lily and Sam's story reminds us that even the smallest actions can protect what matters most, and that love and courage can bind us across generations. As you drift to sleep, may this story bring you comfort and inspire dreams of your own magical adventures. Good night, and we'll see you again for another enchanting tale.